So we're going to talk a little bit about trampoline, considering I've just spent the last 10 days in a gym surrounded by trampolinists, gymnasts, coaches, and it's all exciting stuff. And John is going to pretend to be really interested.
All right, fine. I'll pretend to be interested.
Yep, yep, need the sound effects. No, I mean, I think the business side of running a trampoline club is where your interest would be.
It isn't, yes, definitely.
Because, of course, yes, I enjoy coaching trampoline, but any sports club is a business. You can't get away from that. It is a business because you're hiring out facilities and you're delivering a service, right? And what I found very, very interesting over the week in Portugal, that's where I was,
Mm.
is I spoke with lots of coaches, most of them high performance coaches, about techniques, the best techniques, the how
Oh,
to how to do skills, how to get better, how to do X, Y, and Z, which obviously we could probably discuss quite a bit. But from a business perspective in trampoline, bear in mind, obviously the finances of countries are different. In Portugal, again, this is just one club. I was told it's about €50 a month for an individual to join a trampoline club.
wow.
Now, let's give you some context here. That's €50 a month for potentially 6 days of trampoline,
Oh, nice.
and that's 2 hour sessions.
Oh,
So
wow.
6 times 2 is 12. Times that by four roughly to get a month. Well, now you're looking at 48 hours for €50. That's almost €1 an hour. In England,
Wow, that's crazy.
yeah, in England,
There
for,
must be subsidies. There must be.
uh, in England, it's £4 to play football an hour. Like trampoline, you're looking at six, seven, eight, sometimes £12 an hour, depending on the club. So what finances? But the coaches don't really get paid out there. Yeah, most coaches get paid €12 an hour, and that's like good wage for coaches out there. Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
One of the highest performing coaches that I met while I was out in Portugal got paid €20 an hour, but the €20 was for like they were doing trampoline coaching, but they were also doing psychology for the artistic gymnastics. He's a psychologist, um, and lots of other sort of like managerial jobs, admin, and the rest of it. So he was basically the head coach getting €20 an hour, which I mean that's not bad. Don't get me wrong, especially out there, but as a high performance professional coach, €20 an hour is limited,
Yeah.
especially when you consider consultants and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to charge 500 for an hour. And he is arguably the best you could get, or one of the best you could get. It's just, okay, okay, interesting. But yeah, so finances out in Portugal and in England are
Does it
different.
cost? Is it very? Does it cost a lot less out in Portugal?
When it comes to insurance, I don't know specifics on insurance because obviously that was not one of the conversations I really wanted to have out there. But I know insurance is like way up there for trampoline. So, for reference, this is what I was told. The most dangerous job you can do is cleaning on the windowsill. You know, when you're like hanging from the roof and you clean. That's the most dangerous one. The next is trampoline. So, if you're in a like machine shop with machinery and parts, that's not as dangerous as trampoline, apparently. And this is what I was told. I was like, right. Okay, so the insurances don't really understand trampoline. It's because it's an extreme sport. But yeah, so if the insurance is that high, I would imagine insurance is quite expensive, either for the leisure centre that is hiring it out or the coaches that run the clubs that hire out the facilities. I don't know which way it works. I think it's the club that hire out the facilities from the venue and the sports venue, because where we were in the gym, it looks like a multi-sports court. So you can have other sports on there. So I assume the club is working with the venue to pay for insurance. Whether it's the venue paying for insurance or the club paying for insurance, I don't know. Either way, it's probably quite high. And then the club obviously have to pay for storage of kit and then facilities. And for reference, the training camp that I was at had three double mini trampolines, two run mats, and then they had nine trampolines with floor mats, which almost 2 meters deep, like, and then they go around all the trampolines. plus Index, plus crash mats. So that's like a lot of space for storage, which in England, some people have to pay for storage. So yeah, how you manage all of the finances, I'm really not sure. I'm really not sure how they do it. Especially as this is something I found out, which I was not expecting. They don't get grants. Yeah. They aren't there's no like apply for funding here, go for grant there, ask for loan. No. No. It's all club earns money, club pays for equipment, which I mean, they do it. They put on events. They do lots of fundraising. They obviously do the training camp, which helps them support for some of the equipment. But I was, wow, as we were discussing just before the call, I've been going backwards and forwards in paperwork to look for funding, lottery funding, Sport England support, and loads of other places in England where you can apply for funding for different reasons, for different things, whether it's a small mat or a big trampoline or to some venue hire cost, or if it's a charity, then you can look for some sponsorship of CPD for like coaches qualifications. But yeah, out there, nothing. I was like, okay, business out there is different.
Wow, that's so fascinating. Like, why? I suppose the coaches don't get paid anything. That's kind of wow.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, in
But
England,
then,
most coaches don't get. If you're, I, so I know quite a few clubs now fairly well in England because obviously networking, talking to people. I want to be part of the community, not this random maverick doing his over there. And a lot of the clubs have either assistant coaches that are volunteers, or they have one or two main coaches that the club can't run without because you need a level two coach to actually run the session. So they pay those coaches, but the assistant coaches and the other coaches that aren't, sounds harsh, but if they're not necessary, they're not paid. It's just volunteer. Um, and some clubs are just purely volunteer coaches. They don't pay any of the coaches, and that's in England. So they either struggle with the finances or there's something going on with the numbers. Because I mean, let's be real here. Apologies, sports coaches, if you're listening, but most people that want to coach sport aren't typically great with numbers or great with reading documents and paperwork because they coaching to enjoy sports coaching sport, being with people in person and sport.
yeah,
Numbers and spreadsheets and paperwork and legal documents is not their forte. It's not what they want to spend their time doing, especially reading through 20 pages of legal jargon to make sure that they're not doing anything they shouldn't be doing. And then reading through all the other paperwork that comes through British gymnastics and competition rules and um, FIG regulations and other regulations of facilities and safeguarding and risk assessments and welfare and well-being and blah 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 blah. List goes on and on. So the intricacies of running a business from the outside looking in makes you think, well, don't you need like a manager, a business manager to run the trampoline club? Well, yeah. How'd you pay them?
yeah, I suppose so.
How'd you pay them? Because obviously it's admin. Like running a club is admin. You have to keep track of, okay, person turned up to session, did they pay for? Because some might not. If they're block booking, how many sessions do they have until they need to pay again? Did they turn up? If they didn't turn up, what's your policy for them not turning up and not telling you? Is there one? Well, there needs to be one, but what do they do about that? Or what do you do about that? Do you say, okay, because you didn't give us 24 hours notice, you're still going to pay for it? Or do you just pay for it anyway, irrespective of whether you could turn up or not? Like, clubs do it in different ways. And there needs to be policies on that. And policies and procedures, of course, are written documents and paperwork. So it's not just, I did a video, as you probably watched, what, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago? I want to be a sports coach. Was, as I've said before, unless you just want to join a club and fingers crossed they have the same philosophy as you and you don't butt heads with people, you're going to have to do it on your own.
Yeah,
But that requires you running a business, not just coaching.
and you often spend more time running the business than doing the thing that you like, which I mean is kind of the same for every single business. I think over the years, I don't know whether you have a different experience. Through the years of coaching clients and doing all the stuff that I do, you end up spending a lot of time running the business, and it's easy to get caught into the running of the business versus the like bit you enjoy of the business. And that's why often in the business space they just go, oh, hire a VA and hire a this and a hire a that. And it's like, but the thing is one, you've got to be able to pay for the VA. And then two, what is another kind of unseen cost is you're going to have to train the VA, which often means you're actually doing double, even with a really good VA, you're often doing work to get the person onboarded. And then there is a lot of like, oh, well, they're just, disposable because they're only a VA. When really often a VA is one of the most biggest parts of your thing because they keep things moving. The admin stuff, the bits that you don't want to do because the admin's not
I'm a weird person like that. I do like doing the
you
admin and
are
organization.
weird. Like you are very weird. I like some organization and I like planning at a kind of like a big picture. I like a little bit of like the detail orientated stuff,
I
but
need I
not
need con I need to know everything
like
that's going on.
not to the degree of that I want spreadsheets and no, I just
We
don't
we
want
could talk
spreadsheets.
about spreadsheets if you want.
No, I don't want to talk about spreadsheets. That I will just fall asleep. I don't want to deal with spreadsheets.
Okay,
I uh-oh.
very quickly. So most trampoline clubs or most gymnastics clubs use a software for this. They use a software for clients
Yeah,
that come to go
yeah,
out.
yeah,
I've
it's awful.
I've made my own spreadsheet. I yeah.
I'm not surprised you made your own spreadsheet,
Yeah.
which is good because you're just using your skill set to be able to do the thing easier, which I agree. I mean,
I don't
absolutely.
have to pay for it and I don't have to get any transaction fees because it just goes straight to the account. So, but yeah, I have a spreadsheet and it's so cool, many buttons and things I can
I
do
have
with
seen
pivot
a little
tables
bit
and
I have seen a little bit of your spreadsheet, and it is a cool spreadsheet. But
yep.
Danny, why didn't you use Notion?
Because Notion sucks.
Ooh,
Well,
dear.
if I'm going to do like the spreadsheet calculations that I'm doing, I would not be able to do in Notion, full stop. I can't do it.
But even with Formulas 2.0,
Even with Formulas 2.0, because I would need, so let's think this through. I would have a transaction database. I would then have a participants database, and then I would probably need a pay database as well. And all three of those databases would need to have relations between the participant and then each payment and each transaction. And then the calculation would need to be done on that information, which means you need a roll up. And then you'd probably need a formula on the roll up. And then to get the
probably wouldn't need
calculation,
a roll up anymore, I don't think. You could probably just do it with a formula.
how are you going to reference the relation information through a formula? I assume
You
there's an
can.
update.
Yeah, you can.
So it's like a roll up
Now
without a
prop.
roll up property.
Yeah, you can now. There are limitations which I keep hitting and get annoyed by,
Mm.
but Notion.
So what?
But you
But
can
once you've done that
now.
calculation, is it just a raw number for
It
calculation
depends on how
on
you want
like
to
through?
format it.
Whereas in like through, so if for example transactions, I've got person one, person two, person three, right? I would need an individual calculation for that line to work out what it is, but then I'd
Yeah,
need
I think you could because you can prop dot map. So you
right.
can have the property, you have the relation, and then you can actually map out the numbers. Like you can choose the row that you would use. It wouldn't be the cell, obviously, still, but it would be the row that you're using.
Well,
So
yeah,
you
but you can pick the
can,
cell because the cell is essentially the row and then over to the whatever the property is.
yeah. So you can actually do that now.
And once you've got that calculation for the individual row, I assume to, as it was before, to get any sort of collected value, you'd need to add relations. So if you want all of the person ones in the transaction database, for example, you would need a relation to another database to get the sum. You got
Probably.
person one, person two, person three. To get a sum of person one, you'd need to relate all of person one transactions to something to get a accumulated value. So you've got database of transactions.
Probably not, but well, you'd have the database of transactions related to the individual,
Yeah, so person one would have a relation.
and that would how all of the transactions that I had. So you, I mean, I'd have to look. I'm not
Yeah.
that well versed in in the new
Because I mean,
format.
I'm using pivot tables in Excel, and the pivot table, uh, from my understanding, does more than what you can do in Notion.
I would assume so.
So yeah, and then I'm
You could do
using
more.
other.
You could do more than we were when we actively used Notion.
Oh
Like
yeah,
when
I know it improved, but I haven't
it,
looked at how much. But yeah, anyway, so spreadsheets. I'm playing with spreadsheets, and it's great fun, and I'm using spreadsheets for lots of stuff.
do.
We didn't want to talk about spreadsheets, so you talked about Notion formulas instead.
Yeah, because that's not anywhere more as niche.
Yeah, it's true. That's true. That's true. But yeah, so you were talking about business before we talk about spreadsheets,
Yes.
and you don't remember what you were talking about in business, so we're going to move on.
Well, it was just the VA thing. I think that's kind of I kind of had made my point of like
Okay. So
you end up spending more time.
yeah, because this is a conversation that actually could be useful for other people listening in as well. When it comes to running a business, obviously I am the business owner, but I also am an employee of said business as a coach. So I'm managing myself, of course, but then that also means I would pay myself. So the organization would pay for admin hours. How do you decide what an admin hour is?
That's a good question that I don't have an answer to because I'm not an accountant.
Wait, no, I mean, it's a genuine question. Like when you're working for yourself, how do you decide I am working or I am not working?
I think for me, it's whenever I'm at my computer doing things related to my work, which
Because
involves,
I'm the same, but that means that all the time I'm making the Excel spreadsheet, I should be paying myself to make the spreadsheet.
yeah, which is where things get very expensive for yourself very quickly. And that's why I have myself recorded as nearly 50 hours a week because it often do I want to be doing it? But I just do. I just work 60 hours a week on on things, excuse me,
It is
because I enjoy
fun.
it. Yeah.
Now, here's a very sideways question that might set you back a little bit.
Ah,
Making an app.
oh no.
I've debated a few times, but how easy is it to make an app? Do you know? Obviously, it requires software development, etc., etc.
Depends on the app, and often a spreadsheet's just completely. It can become a full-time job to just develop an app.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know. I'm just thinking because I've developed a few things on Excel spreadsheets, and I'll probably just take my laptop and just input the data because it's easier that way. Maybe make a couple of macros so the UI looks a little bit nicer. But yeah, I was like, well, if I have something on an Excel spreadsheet, do I turn it into an app or do I just keep it in an Excel spreadsheet?
You could just call it an app. I mean, that's what they did. Work for Notion.
That's true. That's true. There you go. An Excel app.
It worked for Notion and that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they do that with the templates.
That's what I was thinking. It would be the same thing. You could develop an app, but I so Spread Simple is a could be a software that could work for you. You can turn spreadsheets into apps. I can't think of any of the names of those like SaaSes that do that right now off the top of my head, but yeah,
Okay.
there are softwares to turn. They're usually Google Sheets versus
Excel. Yeah.
but there
Excel's
probably
better.
is. Cool. I have no stake in this.
Excel is just better.
Why?
Uh, Ease of use, very small
Is
feet.
ha is it ease of use or is it familiarity with the tool?
It is ease of use because I tried using Sheets, and the way that you select cells is less intuitive than Google Sheets. Like Google Sheets doesn't do the things that all other tools do. It has like its quirks. Like when you're going down in a sheet, you can push the down arrow, but it sort of stops, and you got to add rows sometimes. And I'm like, why am I adding rows? It should just be infinite, but it's not infinite. I imagine because it's cloud shared and they don't want to have it big. Pivot tables in Google Sheets, it's not a pivot table, it's something else like a data table or something. I don't remember what it's called.
Yeah.
But the pivot table version in Google Sheets doesn't have the same functionalities. Data validation's not as complex. It's kind of like simplified all of the features from Excel, probably to
Ah,
reduce the
okay.
load. And then some of the formulas, when you get nitty-gritty into the formulas, they work differently. Like there's a different syntax, and the syntax again doesn't really match with anything. It kind of feels like Notion. You like Notion formulas. You have to learn the Notion formula language that's different from like everything else. And Google Sheets feels like that when I go into it.
Ah, okay.
There is certainly a bias with me using Excel for longer than Google Sheets, and some people do love Google Sheets. But as someone that has been diving deep into Excel, or dove deep in Excel years ago, Google Sheets just doesn't have the complexity. If you just want just a basic spreadsheet, Google Sheets and Excel
Hmm.
is basically no difference. But if you're
Hmm.
like me and you're like in the weeds,
It's kind of like Notion, isn't it? It's like if it's just your basic usage,
yeah.
it doesn't really make much difference. But it's when you
It-
get in the weeds, you know.
I think Google Sheets has HLOOKUPs and VLOOKUPs, but when you use HLOOKUPs and VLOOKUPs with an index match inside of a formula, I don't think Google Sheets works with that. And maybe things have changed,
It,
but
yeah, I think
the
I've done
last
a
time I
little
tried
bit
doing
of
that,
that.
it didn't like it much.
It does slow down quite considerably.
Oh yeah, speed on Excel is far better, but then it's local. So
Yeah, that's true. If you use the local version.
yes, yeah, online version is obviously slower. We said we weren't going to talk about spreadsheets, and now we're talking about Excel and Google Sheets.
Well, we're just having like, a fun episode. We're like going back in time to when we used to talk about tech all of the time instead of philosophy.
Yeah, just a little. Yeah, so when it comes to trampolines, coming back to trampolines for a second, or trampolining for a second, there was an interesting debate that I had. So I asked, because obviously I'm deaf, I'm lip reading. I saw one of the coaches talk to one of the gymnasts and they gave some advice. Now, for context, for those unfamiliar with trampoline, at the beginning of a routine, there's a skill called an arm set. Normally, when you jump on a trampoline, this is Olympic trampoline because freestyle trampoline, their arms are all over the place. But in Olympic trampoline, your arms go up as you go up, and then they come down as you go down, and then they go up and down and up and down, etc. An arm set means that when you land in the trampoline, your arms are up. So your arms go up as you go up, and then they come down a little bit quicker so that when you land, your arms go up before you land, not right. Now, what this allows you to do is because you've landed with your arms up, you can then prepare for a somersault going forwards or backwards. So they do it at the start of a routine. Now, how you bring your arms up was the topic of conversation because this coach that I saw was talking about bringing your arms back up by your sides. So normally you'd go up at the front, down by the side, up at the front, down by the side. Then when you do your arm set, you'd go up at the front, down by the side, and then some people bring it back up before you land at the front. This coach said back up by the side, and I asked him, why by the side? And he gave me an answer. So I asked another coach who said, go up by the front. And they gave me an answer. And I thought, okay, I'm going to ask a third coach just to get a bit of a consensus. So we've got one coach saying side, one coach saying front. Guess where the third coach said?
I would love to hear an it depends.
Kind of. Right in the middle. So we got in front of the body, side of the body, and then the third person about here. So it's 45 degrees. So I essentially have three answers to the same question. And all of them said, well, as long as their arms are up, it's fine. So the process of going from down to up didn't matter too much as long as their arms get up to the top when you land. But they were coaching the best technique in their arm sets because it's a skill that they coach. And I was like, ha, okay. So we have three completely different best techniques for the same skill.
That is such a surprise
Does that
because
remind you of conversations we've had?
there is only ever one best technique. You have to do the best technique. There is only one way to do a thing, obviously.
And I then, me being me, wanting to have this conversation with coaches, spoke to said coaches, and it sparked a discussion for like the rest of the day. And both coaches were coming up with performer videos saying, see, up at the front, or see, up at the side, for like the next day as well. So it was certainly an interesting conversation, and this to me is where I would love other coaches to have conversations. it's not broad philosophical abstract conversations. They're niche conversations. I mean,
Yeah,
who else is going to talk about where do you bring your arms up in an arm set, to the side or the front? And trampoline coaches only. But I
yeah,
imagine there are contexts and situations and behaviors like that in all other coaching scenarios that coaches can do.
yeah. It kind of reminded me of like the business discussions around. So recently there was the Neurodiverse Entrepreneur Summit.
I saw. I got all the emails and I deleted all the emails because it was spamming my inbox.
There's a lot of emails. Yeah, so there was the summit, which was really interesting. I sponsored it because they were really good for business.
I did want to go, but obviously in Portugal, so I missed it.
Yeah, so yeah, and it was really interesting because I was a part of the first panel, which was talking all about mindset, productivity, all of that lovely stuff. Because typically, if we make the assumptions that are made, people who are neurodiverse are not very good at being productive or organized. They're not very good at organization. They're disorganized. And someone asked me a question, which was very funny because my response made everybody laugh. I'm not very good at organizing. I don't like it and I don't enjoy it, etc. etc. What do I do? How do I make myself? I just came in and went, context, 10:30 after I had run D&D.
Right.
So I literally came from running D&D to having this conversation. So I went from one thing to another. It was fun. And I just responded with, okay, here's a slightly spicy answer. Don't prepare. Don't like organize. Now, of course, when I say don't organize, I mean self-organize
Mm-hmm.
because that's what we do. But obviously, in that context, I needed to explain it a little bit more, and so I started with "don't" because it was funny,
Yep.
and it got people's attention. Because if you say "don't organize," when really, if you look at the business advice all over the place, it's, oh, we must organize this. You must have your spreadsheets. You must have this. You must have that. You must have you must have all these things, and I just said because often that stuff is just getting in the way. It just stops people from actually doing the thing. And it was really interesting to have that conversation because everyone kind of agreed. And most of them's people.
I'm curious. With the conference, how much did you discuss ecological ideas without using terms, of course?
Everything was pinned philosophically around the ecological approach, slowly introducing obviously the perception and action. That was where I kind of focused in more. So yeah, it was mentioned, it was discussed in that way. We act and we perceive, how we perceive influences how we act, how we act influences how we perceive, and it's a cycle, it's continuous. We're not and continuous is the thing, it's not looking at a snapshot, it's looking at the entire experience. So a lot of my conversation was with that philosophical approach, not example.
Okay. Did you discuss the term neurodiverse at all?
No, I left that one alone.
Oh, that definitely would have been a heated conversation, I think.
I don't think it would have been because when I actually talk to individuals, it isn't as heated because normally there is some more additional context. Because I've had these chats with people before around the labels, and there is kind of like the one person with ADHD, what if you've met one person with ADHD, you know one person with ADHD. I was very deliberate with my language around like I was aware and was very careful with my language to avoid the us v them mentality that is often used in this instance because I don't feel it's effective or even minutely accurate.
Interesting. And there wasn't any pushback at all from. Oh, that's good. That's nice to hear.
It was more I directed my attention elsewhere. I just
Hmm.
moved the conversation towards the individual, which is kind of what I care most about anyway. I don't enjoy the us v them. I don't enjoy the It's not effective.
Because this mirrors my experience in conversation. Most teachers, coaches, gymnasts, athletes, parents, people in general that I speak to, the conversation, like you've had, is very balanced, very similar. It's like, yeah, we have this thing, or we've been diagnosed with this thing, but we are different because of A, B, C, D, X, Y, Z. But when looking online, it's almost like there's a rally cry for an us v them, and I don't understand the motives behind that. It feels like a social movement, but I don't get what the social movement is trying to go with, because all the individuals in it are all slightly different in where they're going. I mean, this is basically politics,
Yeah.
and it's like I'm
I mean, it
conservative, but
is.
I'm Labour, and I'm like,
Unfortunately,
"Mm."
it's political. It is. It feels very political,
Because
and it
as soon as I talk to the people that are talking about the thing online, they're like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I know that," but I'm like, "What do you mean, but?" You're fueling an us v them narrative online, but you don't entirely agree with the us v them narrative. So why?
probably social media. I that is the only conclusion I can come to. Is it gets people talking, it gets conversations started, conflict.
That's where I'm sat right now.
Yeah, I think it's conflict breeds discussion. It makes people.
I guess that brings up a question then when it comes to marketing or anything really. What's good marketing? Because when I look at the us v them discussions, obviously, depending on the measures you take, will change whether it's good or bad. I think there are certainly good elements of the discussion, but I think there are also really poor elements of the discussion. So how would you market the discussion? Would you change the marketing of the discussion? And when I say the discussion, I'm talking about neurodiversity. Because as a business, if neurodiversity was a business, I think it's doing a good job at creating separation.
Yeah.
If that's the goal.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing is it separation, which is a weird one, really. Is it doing a good job? No, not really. It depends on where you're looking, who you're talking to, and what like because you have the ADHD. When you look at the discourse online, from what I've perceived, it is primarily ADHD. Like the discussions are very ADHD focused. When people talk about neurodiversity, they talk about ADHD. They use those words interchangeably. Whereas
ADHD and ASD from what I've seen.
that's interesting because I've not experienced the ASD as much.
Not as much,
Unless
but it's still there.
unless there is ADHD, which is a whole nother label, which is autistic ADHD. But often ADHD are on the forefront of the conversation. It's
Yes,
often
definitely.
focus, which is interesting for me as an autistic individual because I'm like, I know why. I can make my summation of why because my experience of autism is to be very specific and like there is a correct description, there is a correct conversation, there is an effective way of communicating. And it's better to be more accurate than not, or over accurate. I think that's the best description people have said with me. So I am over accurate when I could just say something in so many less words, and it
Mm.
would be so much easier to understand. I'm like, yeah, but the moment I take out every single one of those words, we're
It could
losing
mean something
context,
else.
and it usually is perceived as something else. So I'm being deliberate with my.
I had a similar situation when I was out in Portugal. One of the people that I was talking to, they said, "You're very deep with language." Now, English is their second language, but they said, "I'm very deep with language." And I asked them about it, and they said, "You seem really picky on the words that I say, that you say." And I was like, yes, yes, I am. I'm deliberate with the words that I choose to use because they will mean different things to different people. If I'm speaking to someone as a second language, there are words that I would use speaking to an English person as a native speaker that's slightly different. If I'm speaking to someone familiar with ecological psychology, I would use different terms and words because the communication needs to be able to work both ways to have the conversation that is effective. When I'm coaching some of the kids on trampoline, actually, I don't think I've used affordances or constraints in any of the conversations that I've had, as in the words, but I've put them into place in practice through the practice. And that to me, I think, is the important parts about coaching, about business, about communication, and talking with anyone, is making sure it's effective for the point that you're trying to get across.
Yeah.
And the neurodiverse conversation, I don't know what the point is that they're trying to get across. I mean, if the point is we are different, we knew that before the neurodiverse conversation started, because that's what you've always been told. Everyone's unique, everyone's different. But what that looks like in practice is different. And when you look at Judy Singer, is it Judy Singer?
Yeah.
The person at the start. Her fight wasn't with the public as such. It was with the health system, or the lack of system to help health for I think it was her mum with autism. But that's a health system issue, problem, lack of recognition, which bled into society, yes. But a lot of people in society recognized, hey, this person is different from me. They have different struggles from me. The health system just didn't help that. And so neurodiverse movement, etc., all of the history, but that problem is still there because of the health system, not society, the health system, which brings back the question, like, what's the point of the conversation? And this is where I think a lot of the friction comes from, with the older population saying, yeah, we've always been different. We were different when I was younger, and I struggled with this when I was younger, but I don't get this support, that support, these conversations. And I think that's because the point is somewhat blurred from my experience in speaking with other people that are similar.
Yeah, I think that is, yeah. I think like from my perspective as a
Simon
member,
Sinek, where's your why?
it is very much perhaps it's approval and permission to be themselves, which is often the kind of thing. It's looking for a way to express their needs. That's what I'm seeing, and that's kind of, it's like I have a need. Here is what that's, and then people relate.
I get what you're saying, but my biggest question when people talk about needs is, I don't like the word needs in there, because I don't think all of the needs are needs, because you don't need it. It's a preference. Like, you could do it, but it would require far more energy and effort for you to do the thing. So need,
Yeah.
I'm not entirely sure I'm sold on the word needs for all of the needs
Yeah,
people
no,
use and talk about. If that makes
is
sense.
that a word? Yeah, I'm trying to think of a better word or a more effective word, because I see what you mean with the need. Because you can, I'm just thinking, like, well, I suppose,
Hierarchy of
like,
needs.
the affordances, the opportunities for behavior in the environment given, provided, being able, that would probably be a more accurate phrasing of what it is. It's the opportunity, like that actual.
Well, it's the action capabilities of the individual depending on the affordances that they are perceiving. But that's an ecological explanation, which I
Mm,
think explains very well the struggles of each individual, irrespective
yes.
of what label you put on them, because it's
Which
the
I
action.
I think that's the thing. It's bringing that because of the philosophy of practice that we have. And like I think I've said this before, and I think we said it in the art. I said it in the article. The ecological approach clearly expresses how I do the things I do, even despite this, despite that, because of, like, in spite of the fact that I'm blind, in fact, in spite of the fact that I'm this, in spite of the fact that I'm that, I'm still a functioning member of society, whatever the heck that's supposed to mean. And
Yeah.
it depends on who you ask. But
But
like
but
that,
that's why I think the ecological approach explains human behavior far better than traditional explanations that are
Yes.
ingrained within the linguistics that we are using to explain behavior because of cognitive psychology, etc., history. So I guess my
I actually think I did go, well, and I think it was perceived slightly differently to my intention, which is fine because, meanings, people, words. It was because I just went,
you can't just say meaning people and words and then just not express what that is. Come on, that's my claim to fame.
nah, that's mine.
Meanings are in people, not words. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
meanings are in people, not words. But it was, I think, I'm just remembering, I was just like, yeah, when I speak to neurodiverse, it's like society doesn't work the way that my brain works. And I'm sat there going, no, 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 it's not necessarily society. I mean, it is society, but there's some nuance to that. The traditional cognitive approach does not work for the way that you work because it doesn't work for anyone. And that is, I think, I don't remember, but that was the intention of what I was saying a lot of the time in the session. Of like, let's just look at what capabilities we have and use those capabilities to support us to do the things we want to do because it's much simpler than everything else. Because
Yeah.
because once you understand that, it does become simpler. It it unpacks so much of the shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. Something, so a conversation I had yesterday with a gymnast, was about what they wanted to do on the trampoline. Now, most times in trampoline, it's about competition and competing and getting the best score and the rest of it. And when I said, "Oh, let's just have some fun," they were stuck with fun. They didn't really know how to have fun on the trampoline. I would argue that's the whole point of doing a sport is to have fun, but they were stuck. So I suggested a couple of things to do. Maybe do how do I say this without being trampoliny? Okay, so land on back, full twist, land on back. It's a cat twist. The gymnast could do a cat twist. I said we'll do 4 in a row. I've never tried that before. Okay, do 2 in a row. Did two, did three, did four, did five, without me asking to do any more. And then he did a double, so he did backline, double twist to backline. And they then explored this movement and had fun with this movement, but it's not in competition. No one wanted them to train it. It wasn't designed to improve something else. It was just exploring action capabilities. And for me, I think that question, how do I have fun, is what some people struggle with in day-to-day life. How do I have fun? How do I enjoy myself? How do I explore these problems, these challenges, this behavior, this situation? They struggle on how to explore it without conforming to some measurable metric of performance, which, I mean, that's what work. And
Yeah,
that's and when I look at TikTok videos, a lot of those are people just exploring action capabilities at work. It's them having fun. It's not doing easy things. It's doing things that are mildly challenging or difficult, which is fun. You don't see people doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again because it's really easy in a TikTok video. You see things doing things fast or higher or bigger or different, left-handed, or they're doing it with some sort of constraint to make the challenge, to make the task challenging. That is what fun is. And the TikTok videos are people having fun at work. So maybe just a thought, explanations through ecological dynamics and the ecological approach when applied to work is them having fun. And we look at research in sports coaching about what fun is, and fun requires challenge. That to me is powerful if applied in life. That's what I've done. And I think that's what you're doing slash have done.
yeah.
I mean, you're doing far more DMT than you used to.
Remember what?
DMT, not DMT, DND.
That was very confusing.
Yeah, because DMT is double mini trampoline.
Yeah,
That's
I was gonna say that's a term I've heard you
DND.
use that term, and I'm like, I ain't doing no DMT. What are you on about? Yes,
DND. Yeah, there you go.
D&D. Yes, yeah.
Yeah, too much trampoline recently. But
I'm
yeah,
so
when I saw you, I was like, you don't know what I've just said. What did I just say? I'm just gonna say it again. And I said it again. I thought, That doesn't sound right. What does it? Oh, it's not DMT.
You were just making sure I was paying attention. That's what it was.
Yeah, yeah, precisely. That's exactly what I was doing. 100%. As a a lasting thought, habits.
Oh,
The reason I ask is the coaches out in Portugal were saying they don't want people to do skills bad, poorly, ineffective because they create a bad habit of doing the skill.
oh, habits are that easy to have, are they? Oh, okay.
Apparently, doing it once is enough to make a bad habit. I think that's a load of
Oh,
BS.
that's interesting.
Yeah, if I could do, basically, I'd done a load of prep skills for doing a skill, which I thought I could already do, but I had to prep it because I needed the best technique going into it. Um, and then after 2 sessions, this is like over 2 hours worth of doing prep skills, I thought, you know what, let's just play a game. And we played a game called Add-on or Shopping List or Tag, whatever you want to call it. Person gets on, does a skill, then you get off, and the next person gets on, do that skill, and then you add a skill on.
Yeah.
And the person in front of me did the skill that I was prepping for. But I couldn't do a prep because I had to actually do the thing. So I did the thing, and then the coaches said, well, now that's just ruined the last 2 sessions because I did the skill, but I didn't do the skill right. So I'm now building a bad habit to do the skill wrong. Your face summarizes my expression when I heard them say that. I was like,
So many assumptions.
yeah, I was like, right, okay, that's how skill works. You just do it once and now you got a bad habit, and now all of the prep work is out the window. They're different skills.
Yeah.
But yeah, so when it comes to developing bad habits, how would you describe a bad habit?
I wouldn't.
Good. So atomic habits. Is it
Fuck
useless?
that, but I hate that book. I have
I mean,
never liked that book.
it's not wrong.
It's not right either. It's
Half
just,
glass half full, half empty there. Not wrong, but it's not right.
it's just, it's not effective. It is so,
Why is it so popular then?
because it's so simple, because it's marketed well, because it pushes on the pain points of most of the general population, because it's marketed so well. And because so many people say it's so good and amazing and incredible, because people read the book and they're in that wonderful kind of honeymoon zone of it. And they love it. And it's fun and it's great and everything's working until the moment they get beyond a certain point or something changes and things adapt and life just happens and then everything goes out the window.
It sounds like you associate atomic habits with a step-by-step protocol principle.
Because it is a step-by-step protocol principle.
Yeah, but there is philosophy in the book.
Yeah, but the vast majority of it is not philosophy.
When was the last time you read?
It's been a while, I will say, and I start swearing at it about halfway through the book and just shut it and then throw it because it drives me insane.
I mean,
Like,
don't get me
oh,
wrong, there are parts in there where I'm irritated. But looking at the book through an ecological lens, I think is helpful.
I might try it again.
Just to
Like,
add some like annotations and be like, no assumption, no assumption, no assumption.
I mean, I think I could just open the book and just write a big, massive assumption. Maybe actually, what I could probably do is create a flip, like a flip animation where I slowly write assumption. Just flip through.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, sort of going back a little bit when it comes, the way that I would describe habits is just through the bifurcations of the ecological approach, the way that we would explain developing consistency throughout repetition, repetition without repetition, of course. So if we are developing a skill and we're developing a skill in a similar way, then we are more likely to attune ourselves to those movement solutions if it solves the problem. If we have a different problem, then we need to adjust our solution.
We need a different solution, different problems, different solutions.
Precisely. So when I'm doing trampoline coaching and prepping and the rest of it, how do you adjust the problem? That's what I'm doing for my practice design. How do I adjust the problem to help the individual find solutions that I think is going to be more useful? Now, in trampoline, because it's a very aesthetic sport, I would imagine most of my problem solving is going to be using recording.
Makes sense.
Because if you say, do front flip, they will do front flip, feet to feet. Once they've done it, there you go. There's the win condition. landed it on my feet. Good. Okay, now do an out bounce. So front flip and then straight bounce. Okay, great. Win condition met. Cool. Now do an exit. Why? Because the judges say so. Yeah, but why? If you don't want to compete, why would you do an exit? And if you do an exit, how do they know when? Is that a good exit or not a good exit? And the win condition of trampoline is different from most other sports because you're not fighting against someone, you're not playing against someone, you don't have opponents, it's just you.
Yeah.
And the only way you can win against you is by comparing you present to you past.
Yeah.
Which requires video. Because you can't see yourself present and past, or you can't see yourself at all. You can only feel it. And that's where I think trampoline coaches don't use video recording for comparison, aren't using useful or effective practice design. Because I don't know how an individual would problem solve without the information.
Well, they wouldn't. They'd be told by the coach because the coach is supposed to tell them what to do.
Because the coach knows all.
Yeah.
Precisely. And that brings up the I guess the final point of my little trampoline spiel is recording individuals, privacy and policy issues. So practice design inhibited by privacy and policy issues. Not.
But you can create a policy and ask for a signature, though.
Well, yeah. And that's probably what I would do for Respawn Trampoline, is say, hey, we use recordings. Is it okay if we record blah, blah, blah? Do you actually? I have no idea whether you'll know this. Maybe someone listening all the way through to the end will know as well. Do you know of a way to have a live recording, but also record parts of the live recording? Does that make sense? So,
give me an example.
I want to put iPad on chair looking at trampoline, and there be a live video.
Yeah.
Maybe like a delay. So a person can have a look at what they did and go, oh, okay, that's what it looked like, and then go again, right? But I also, if it was a really nice skill, want to be able to go, oh, record that. Or if I know they're going to prep a skill, push record before. In an ideal world, I can just push record and it like clips the last 40 seconds or whatever as a recorded video.
Yeah, there should be. I wonder if OBS could do it.
How would I do that in
Because that's a very streamy.
Yeah, exactly. It's sort of like it's like a live stream and then having a VOD.
Yeah.
I would imagine there's some coaching software out there that does it already, probably extortionately priced. But I was like, hey, John, you're a techie person. Do you know of any way to do it? Because like I can put a camera up, but it's not going to have a 40-second delay. So I'd need a way to record something with a 40-second delay so I can delay the stream back to the people. But then I'd also want to be able to record either whatever happened. I mean, I guess if there's a 40-second delay, you can just record the recording. So you can push the record button before the 40-second delay plays whatever it is, and then it's going to record the live.
That would probably be the easiest way of doing it.
Because let's just record whatever's happened, and if whatever's happened is 40-second delay, then you can just, oh, that was good, push record, and then it'll record the thing, and then stop the recording afterwards. Got you thinking now?
Yeah, because it just sounds like a stream. But then when you're talking about streaming, then you get privacy problems even
Well,
greater.
as soon as you stream, you've got internet problems. Like, how am I going to get internet in a big leisure centre?
Yeah, that's true.
Gonna suck.
Unless you local stream. I suppose you could kind of like a Ring kind of thing.
If I've got my laptop, I could use it as a recording.
Yeah.
I could use it as a live recording, but the live recording won't have a delay on it. It would just be a live recording. And then if you go out of it, you would lose the recording, so that wouldn't work. Never mind. I tried.
You could record it all and maybe use markers. So if something
Well, yeah, but I mean, if I've got a session, I'm working for an hour, for example, I've got 4 individuals. Every 2 minutes they're swapping around, and I want 2 or 3 of the skills in their go.
Yeah, that's true.
You're looking at like 100+ markers. F sorting through all of that, and some
AI.
of those. And some of those things, yeah, but some of those things they would want to see during the session. Like maybe they get on, they do a skill, and then they want to have a look at the skill. then they do the skill again, like say it's a tuckback somersault, do a tuckback, and then do a tuckback, and then they want to compare the two exits. If they want to
Yeah.
compare the two exits, they can visually go, okay, that was a little later, that was a little earlier, but they'd need to be able to see it whilst the live is still going on.
There must be a way.
I know there
It's
must be a way. That's what I've been saying, but I'm like, what's
like
that? Where? What? Who?
there must be a piece of software that allows you to do that. It just seems so simple.
Well, there's your Sunday.
Great, thanks.
Is there anything else you want to bring up? You want to talk about?
That's all good. I'm not very much. It's just a nice problem to solve.
Awesome. Right. Thanks everyone, and we'll talk to you next week.